two private investigator firms, right?
Okay.
To find out a lot of the allegations that were made towards people in Will's circle.
Okay.
Right? And as we get into the interview, I'll start to give you real examples, right, of how that goes. But seeing that, I said, wow. And I just didn't know how to take it coming from Philly and seeing something like that. But with my knowledge of now over having 30 years in the business, it's like, okay, this is the grooming. This is how the grooming starts. I didn't know that back then. But now, having spent decades in LA, I'm like, yo, they was grooming him all this time. So after that becomes six degrees of separation. And we can get into that a little bit. Will plays a gay guy, but you got to look at how Will prepared for the movie. So he admits to watching a lot of gay, to learn how to kiss a man, to learn feminine attributes, right? So I find that bizarre. They flew him out to Europe to watch live shows, right? And I'm like, yo, this, like, I'm from Philly, so I'm just like, This is he's going in. He's, in his mind, he has to know how a gay man interacts with people, talking, mannerisms, getting ready for a love scene with another man. I'm like, why are you, like, in my mind, I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, why, you have a successful TV show. Why go to playing a gay man? And why go to the extremes? Because anybody know Will, when he puts his mind to something, every character, he goes in solid. You watching gay, you're going to live shows.
That means he had to get aroused by watching that.
That's what. And we end up finding that became, I believe, that became his addiction to men. That was the addiction to men, because he was in a safe environment, right? And they made that environment safe for him. So whoever he was, he could now become. And that created a monster.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. Okay. So we've got this steepling going on. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's here. But also what we're getting is a self-soothing in the median nerve here. Which is connected right up your arm. Sometimes if you've got a headache, if you kind of press into there, you can fix your headache. It's quite an important nerve. So it's interesting that we're getting this self-soothing from him, repetitious finger movement in this area. That means there must be some big stress going on up here. I mean, maybe it's shoulder stress, maybe it's elbow stress, and maybe it's stress in his hand. But it could be a bit of a headache for him to put this story across. I mean, there could be all kinds of reasons. Maybe it's a really difficult, maybe it's a very difficult true story for him to tell, or maybe it's a very difficult false story for him to tell. Some vocal clicks in there as well. That's interesting. We'll hear some further down the line as well. That for me often means stress. Look, might be stressful for him to be on a podcast. But then again, I mean, this is a guy who was, like the assistant to some big Hollywood stars, running around. He knows Hollywood really well. He knows entertainment. He hangs out with the stars. So I'm not sure what the big stress would be for him sitting around a few bottles of wine upside down to say, well, we've sorted that one out. Let's have another. And I don't know what the stress would be about there. I mean, other than he's throwing his best friend under the bus. That's extraordinary. I got some of my best friends here. Don't do that to me. I mean, unless you really have to. I mean, unless you've got a book to sell. I mean, that might be. I mean, but otherwise, like, I really wouldn't like that. That would suggest to me you're not a best friend, really. So the narrative here that comes across is Hollywood groomed a gay man monster. Essentially, Hollywood groomed. So he wasn't gay before, but he got into doing 6 Degrees of Separation. That groomed him. Hollywood groomed him into being an absolute homosexual monster. So, Chase, to your point, that is utterly sensational. That is from the Blue Lagoon. That's the thing. So classic Hollywood. Then for this Hollywood insider, I'll leave it on this. This Hollywood insider can't work out why Will Smith would want to do the lead role in 6 Degrees of Separation. Just can't understand it. Why would Will Smith want to play this role of a homosexual male in 6 Degrees? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it was the biggest show on Broadway. It was the biggest show. It won so many Tonys. It won a whole bunch of awards when it was in London. They then decided to make a film of it. Stockard Channing was going to do it. Stockard Channing was set up for an Oscar on that. She didn't win the Oscar, but she was nominated. He was hoping he would be nominated and win an Oscar for it. That's why he does it. Does it for every reason that anybody does anything in Hollywood. They at that high level, they're hoping to win one of those prizes. Why not? Like if you were offering me one, I'd take it. I wouldn't send it back. That'd be fantastic. But I don't quite understand why this Hollywood insider has zero idea why he would have taken that role, because it was a great role. He could have won an Oscar. He didn't that year, but he could have. Chase, what do you got on this one?
I'll tell you exactly why. Because he's from Philly, and he tells you over and over and over. And it seems to be some kind of code that he uses to remind people that he's tough and that he doesn't participate in these scenarios. And I think this is obvious to anybody, but it's a personal and precision attack on Will Smith's character. As for motive, there's not much I know about when it comes to this issue and this case and these people. And I personally find this kind of gossip type stuff disgusting to watch. And I'm repulsed just kind of going through some of these videos, to be very frank with you. The campaign is crafted pretty well, though. In this video, he's making all the character assassination while at the same time, and I think he does this unconsciously, using justification, rationalization, blame shedding, and projection to make it look like there's no obvious attack on Will, which he does a great job here in this video. The eyebrow flashes up are all at these sensational moments, and the other nonverbal behavior that you're going to see in this clip is around sensationalism with the deep-seated fear that he's going to accidentally be associated with some of the behavior here, if you know what I'm talking about. So he's desperately trying to distance himself from the homosexuality, saying where he's from dictates what kind of person he is. And keep in mind, the stakes are extremely important when it comes to indicators of deception being present. The lower the stakes are for the person talking, the less likely you are to see deception markers. So stakes are very important to raise when you're questioning somebody. And just as a PSA, some of the videos coming up are about celebrity gossip. And just to let you know, I will not participate in that. It's a conscious choice of mine. No one here has asked me to do that. But I want to set an example, I think, for more people than just my kids. And I think the gossip stuff is a little bit socially corrosive and has a tendency to make shame and judgment become a hobby for some people. So if you understand, I thank you for that. Scott, what do you got?
You don't get it, Chase. You're not. Good Lord. I know. And some of this stuff is so gossipy, man. It's just so gross. But anyway, so I'll build on what you were talking about. The more on whatever she replies to, he starts building on top of that. She'll say, so this happened? He'll go, yeah, and this and this and that. No matter what she says, he never says, no. What happened was this. He doesn't correct her. He says, yeah, that's what happened. This, and she goes, this is the worst thing ever. It's worse than that, man. Here, and makes it bigger and bigger and bigger. This is the first time we actually hear him getting in detail about the grooming of Will. So his illustrators are slowly becoming larger and larger and more prevalent. And the swallowing between words, that's sort of got my attention there, because that lets us know he's a little bit nervous as he's coming on with confidence. Or he's beginning to look more confident at this point. And his enlarging illustrators and his voice tone, that says, For me, I'm selling something because when she asks questions, quite often, a couple of times he explodes out into it, but he starts off slow and we watch it ramp up to this excitement he's got going on. But he waits till she's locked in as he starts doing that because she's doing a great job. It's because she's just listening. The more he talks, the more she just sits there and listens. And that's what you want. And from our perspective in an interview, you want somebody just talking, just let him go and go and go. And the more he goes, for me personally, the worse this thing's sounding to him. So he starts down this path about how what sounds to me like he's heard all this before through gossip. Not that I'm sure some of the things like with that kiss he was talking about earlier, maybe he probably saw that. But a lot of this stuff, when it comes to the gossip part, going back to what you were talking about, Chase, I'm with you, man. A lot of this stuff just sounds like gossip that he's blowing up and saying, I can take that, I'll take this, because everybody knows about that. It's almost ridiculous. But I also noticed he's agreeing with, and not only is he agreeing with and building on what she's saying, I think he might be creating a couple things outside of that as well. I could be wrong about that, but as it gets bigger and bigger, I think he's adding to that stuff that he hadn't thought about before, if that makes any sense. So let's also pay attention to how the times that he backs up. It's not a big deal. It's not a whole lot. He doesn't back up like that. But as he's talking, he gets up and he backs up just a little bit. That's one of the key things you look for. When I'm training entrepreneurs how to pitch, and they're going into venture capitalist or an angel investor or just investors who they're talking to, I make sure when they get asked a question about financials, they don't move back even the least bit, because if there's somebody like me in there watching them, then I'm going to say, you know what, they're not really confident with their answer, what they're talking about. Not that they're lying, not that they're not telling the truth, but they may, even though they're the financial person, they may not be the one that came up with that answer to your question. It's something they read and they're prepped for it, but they may not know it in depth. And it's important to know if the financial person you're talking about or talking to, asking questions to about, knows what they're talking about. They have to know the backstory. Where are the financials really going? So that's one of the key things you look for is when they back up a little bit. Doesn't mean they're being deceptive every time, or they're not even being deceptive. They're just not confident with what's happening there. Quite often you hear that phrase, where there's smoke, there's fire. I smell smoke. This is starting to smell like something's up here because he's too into it. And I agree with you again, Chase. As we go through these, there's a couple other parts where it looks like there's something going on where I don't know what the problem is, but he's mad about something. If indeed he is angry, which I think he's been over the anger part for so long, he's just started, I'll agree with there as well, what sounds like a smear campaign, because so far he's not corrected anything that she's asked or said. Granted, she's just repeating a lot of what he's saying, but at some point you can say, well, it's not that bad. It's more like this. Nope. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Greg, what do you got?
So let's talk about a few things. One, Chase, I agree with you. There's a whole lot of gossip in here. What I hope to do through this is where the gossip is to pin it down and say, that's gossip. Here's how you know. Because the holidays are on us, and you're going to get a chance to talk to a lot of people in the next few weeks, and you should be able to identify gossip versus truth. I think it's a great opportunity for that. The second one is you're going to run into exactly what this guy's doing right here. This is conspiracy theory thinking, exactly what he's doing. He's got no real facts. He's got secondhand information, but he's shopping it as fact. And if you don't believe that, pay attention to him. What I love is Tasha's face is so expressive. She's like, what? I love that whole furrowed brow and all those things. When he does that down, and Chase, you're going to hear him try to separate self from Will Smith with that Philly thing over and over and over. I agree. And he does throw Will Smith under the bus where he almost comes out and says, I believe he was always gay. He just got the chance to be who he was. I mean, he's trying to throw him under the bus at some case here, even if he's masking it. But when I say he's doing conspiracy theory, what conspiracy theory people will do is they'll fish and farm information to you to see how much you're willing to take. And, I've used this term before on the show. I don't know how many years it's been, but in the Army, there's something we call aiming stakes. And it means that when I'm in the dark, Chase, you never had to deal with this, because when you're in a dirt and you got guys on each side of you, you put stakes in the ground so you don't shoot in their area. This guy is taking the most extreme thing he thinks of, and watch him raise his brow and ask for approval when he says they sent him to live sex shows. See that? Watch that face up, and he's waiting for an answer, and then his face drops. That's his outside stake. He does another outside stake, and then he goes and he's got believability because there's this picture of Will Smith kissing another actor. So then he's like, okay, now he's built on something where Will Smith kissed another actor in Hollywood. Now he's going to this. This is the basics of running a conspiracy theory. Now, look, here's the other thing. All conspiracy theories are not false. Sometimes they're true. We don't know, but they're not firsthand knowledge. You always see these guys who are saying, and then they had UFOs, and then there were aliens, and they're fishing for what you'll believe, and then they abducted me. And when they get to that point, then you have to start paying attention for where they're looking for that. Other comments are easier for him, than this one comment, so he's just rolling those off, but watch for where he's hit his hardest one. And then he comes back, and we'll start watching from here. He does requests for approval. He raises his forehead at every building block of his story. Doesn't mean it's not true. It simply means that he's getting your approval before he moves to the next state. And when you're talking to a person at a party and they are telling you a conspiracy theory, pay attention to those, because you'll see the elements that matter as their brow rises and they're asking for approval. And you'll see that aiming stake when they go really to the far and they're holding their head up like, you believe that one too? That's their far reach. Pay attention, and I'll give you some tools later for how to back that down.
One of those tape replays.
2 private investigator firms, right?
Okay.
To find out a lot of the allegations that were made towards people in Will's circle.
Okay.
Right? And as we get into the interview, I'll start to give you real examples, right, of how that goes. But seeing that, I said, wow. And I just didn't know how to take it coming from Philly and seeing something like that. But with my knowledge of now over having 30 years in the business, it's like, okay, this is the grooming. This is how the grooming starts. I didn't know that back then. But now, having spent decades in LA, I'm like, yo, they was grooming him all this time. So after that becomes 6 degrees of separation. And we can get into that a little bit. Will plays a gay guy, but you got to look at how Will prepared for the movie. So he admits to watching a lot of gay to learn how to kiss a man, to learn feminine attributes, right? So I find that bizarre. They flew him out to Europe to watch live shows, right? And I'm like, yo, this, like, I'm from Philly, so I'm just like, yeah. This is he's going in. He's, in his mind, he has to know how a gay man interacts with people, talking, mannerisms, getting ready for a love scene with another man. I'm like, why are you, in my mind, I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, why, you have a successful TV show. Why go to playing a gay man? And why go to the extremes? Because anybody know Will, when he puts his mind to something, every character, he goes in solid. You watching gay, you're going to live shows.
That means he had to get aroused by watching that.
That's what. And we end up finding that became, I believe, that became his addiction to men. That was the addiction to men, because he was in a safe environment, right? And they made that environment safe for him. So whoever he was, he could now become. And that created a monster.
If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.